I was 13 when I joined the Air Cadets and went off to a camp, RAF camp. But part of that experience, we were taken to a US Air Force Base, and we were met at the Air Force Base and taken in and shown a U-2 spy plane. And the guy was telling us about this, and he said something on his radio, and the hatch that slid open, and we were all looking down at the nose cone of a ballistic missile. And he explained to us that these ballistic missiles would be dispatched to the predetermined target. But what he then said that for every one of those that we were sending over there, in response, there was many with a predetermined target of where we were stood. And at 13 years old, I found this so traumatic. Not at the time, because the excitement of what we were looking at, but thinking it through afterwards, the thought of all this destruction that once somebody pushed the button, there was no going back. And it really affected me through my teenage years.
The Cold War was definitely in the background as I was growing up. We were made aware of it at school. Bizarrely, it was deemed to be okay if you heard an alarm to hide under the tables. To be fair, we didn't really see any point in worrying about everything. I don't remember being concerned particularly. I do remember it also being quite an exciting time, having an airbase, an American airbase close by, which we visited on a couple of occasions through youth clubs and things, was absolutely fascinating. It was like stepping into another land in a way. They allowed visitors to use the 10-pin bowling. Well, that was just absolutely fabulous as a child, to go 10-pin bowling and pay for dollars to get juices such as Dr. Pepper, which we just wouldn't have any other time, or Hershey's chocolate, or these different Americanized things.
We were very much surrounded by it all the time, and there was many times when I would sit, and discuss with my parents, would it ever happen? What would we do? We had the 4 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute warning, whatever it is, and what would we do if that really happened? My most vivid memory was, and I remember just happened to glance at the newspapers. There was just a headline, and it just said 6 minute war madness. I picked it up to discover that apparently the West had gone to war with the East for 6 minutes because of some kind of computer error, and it made me realise how how real it was, and how close we could be to nuclear disaster. I do remember vividly the public announcements, the messages on television about building your own shelter and so on. I can still hear that shrill music. I remember vividly when the Berlin Wall came down. We all ended up just sitting around the TV watching people demolish the wall, and everybody being just so ecstatic, so happy. It was such a happy moment in history.
I was in my teens at the time. I didn't really get a sense of fear. I mean, there was always that sort of undercurrent of tension between NATO and the Warsaw Pact, but I certainly didn't lie awake at night worrying that the world was going to end in nuclear holocaust. So yeah, it was one of those things that it kind of went on in the background, but it didn't really affect your daily life. Another thing is, I think it's interesting the parallels with the war in Ukraine. It does feel like a return to those sort of east-west tensions again, motivations and historical reasons for people doing things. It's all perfectly logical. For the Americans, their great fear has always been the surprise attack. So it was Pearl Harbor, it was 9/11. For the Soviet Union or Soviet Russia, their great fear has always been the big attack from the West. It was Napoleon, it was Hitler. Their way of dealing with that was having the Eastern European buffer states, which, with the collapse of communism, the disbandment of the Warsaw Pact, that's all gone. It does feel so much like an extension of the Cold War because it's trying to return to that, having the Warsaw Pact there to protect European Russia from an attack from Europe.
I was a pilot, and my tales of the Cold War. Well, in my particular role, I had a 36-hour life expectancy if we had gone to war. I was involved face to face with the Russian Air Force. We would pick them up in international airspace and we would intercept them. We would fly information beside them and we'd escort them all the way down till casting off over the Atlantic. These particular flights were known as the Milk Run, and it would usually be Bear, Deltas, or Foxtrots picked up and shepherded off down until they went on their way to Cuba. Now, that sounds all quite jolly, friendly, nice. We were armed aircraft approaching Russian aircraft. So, really, in terms of international law, we were a threat. We would move into close formation beside them or even behind them. As we closed in behind, you could hear the radar warning screaming in your ear. These are ZSU-23 for guns that are laid down. And we would watch them. We would see the guns. The guns would train on us. The guns would follow us down and be pointing straight through the cockpit windows directly at you. And that wasn't the most comforting thing you've ever seen.